Hello, everyone. So, since this is the bye week for OP and there's no chapter coming in this week, I decided to focus on something that caught my eye on Twitter, basically in One Piece community. I see almost everyone talking about the Zoro versus Sanji, Sanji versus Zoro. Okay, so I thought I might just address the situation with the time that we don't actually have to talk about a new chapter this week. So basically, there are they are rivals, right? We get that. But there's a difference. There's a very key difference in their characters. The number one is Zoro is actually a swordsman, as his basic function in the crew is to actually fight well, as well. Sanji, well, he's a chef who can fight. So that is a very major difference right there. But even in that and the goals, there are a lot of difference, right? As Zoro, his end goal is to be the best swordsman in the world. For Sanji, his goal has nothing to do with power scaling or strength. His end goal is to reach the all blue, where he can find every fish from each of the blue seas, right? So that is the very key difference, and that is also like where we learn that there is absolutely no reason for Sanji to be getting stronger rather than just to be on the same level and progress as a character in strength as the story goes on. It also like adds a layer of how One Piece as a story doesn't focus on strength. Obviously, there's some power scaling involved because you need to balance the world and the universe inside the world building that you're creating. But aside from that, there is no strong emphasis on power scaling that Mr. X would wipe the floor with Mr. Y or whatever, right? There's a hierarchy that is created and that is maintained. So at no point in the story is Zoro going to be stronger than Luffy or Mihawk being stronger than Shanks or Roger and these bullshit theories that I've actually heard online. Ignore them. Basically, ignore them. That's the best thing that you could do. Okay, so focusing more on the last chapter that came out. In the last chapter, it is also, I would say, one of my favorite chapters that we have gotten in Wano lately. So, in this chapter, what actually happens is that we put a more focused light on Sanji and his struggles as a character, which is started in Whole Cake Island. So, since from the Whole Cake Island, what you're actually seeing is even his even in his own arc, Sanji wasn't actually given an opponent to fight against. But his real opponent was his own self and how he identified himself. The battles within, that is what we focused on Sanji in Whole Cake Island. So he recognized his family line, his lineage, his genes, and he even accepted a red suit from Raizo, his sister. So he has been using that suit on and off in Wano. And what has actually happened is that that suit has triggered his genes and activated them. And Sanji, well, we have seen that he has abandoned his family's side and he never wanted to be similar to them or associated to them. He basically wanted to be the opposite of them. And that's where Zeph comes in. Zeph is basically his father in the story. He has nothing to do with Judge. He doesn't associate himself as the kid of Judge. He associates himself with the teachings of Zeph and how he follows that code. He never uses his hands to fight because those are reserved for cooking, right? And he even doesn't go off against women and is a chivalrous gentleman. That also comes from Zeph. So fast forwarding from there, what has actually happened is Sanji has had to struggle throughout post time skip arcs Basically, because the strongest route a character can take has been reserved for Zoro because he trained in the Mihawk. So if Zoro struggles to fight his opponents, then we can basically say that Mihawk didn't train him properly, or he didn't get a proper upgrade from training under Mihawk, which undermines the value of Mihawk in the OP verse. And Luffy, as a character, as the main character of the story, rather, has to fight strong opponents, face hurdles, and he has to overcome them because he's the main character, and the story has to run through him. The story has to progress through the main character. So the only route that gets left for Sanji's character to take is that he constantly has to struggle. He doesn't actually get to have the feats that Luffy or Zoro get to have, but rather his character development and his struggles are of his own self. They are about him realizing who he actually is. And that is why we have come to a head in this current arc and in this current chapter, to be exact. This is where he realizes that he cannot pick and choose his own genes, but he can pick and choose how to use them. So he still abandons the rat suit and he stomps on it and destroys it. But he's still going to use his genes to follow the orders that Luffy gives him. We see that he bids farewell to two things, not just one. He isn't just bidding farewell to the rat suit and the German jeans, but he's also bidding farewell to his simp side, basically. He says goodbye, women's parts, right? So from here on, he's focusing on being his own version of the man of science, which is also the title of the chapter. So basically, what is Oda implying over here is that Sanji is more accepting of who he is now. He's no longer running away. And if we go back to the previous chapter, 1030, he actually quite literally was running away. And now then he stopped and he's facing his demons head on, which over here are implied by Queen because he himself is also a modified human again, right? Which draws a parallel to Sanji. And he's standing up to him. And there's also a more detailed focus put on his move that he uses. Sanji has used this move once before in Fishman Island. This was right after the 2-year training period that he had on the island. He was using this move, which is called Hell's Memory. He uses this move to basically burn the memories that are inscribed within him. And over here, he uses that same move. He's burning white in the flames while he uses them. Oh, hottest temperature the flame can reach is when it burns the brightest.